And if we, I guess like next time we can even, so we could post a link because we do have a TriFit Barbell page on Facebook.
Yeah.
We'll post just just random stuff, what's coming up, holidays.
I like that.
Try to build a little community. We can always post it to that, and that way we'll drive more traction, get more people attention, stuff that. But we can let them know a little more in advance. I think that'll help.
Right, and then same thing as it grows, I think we could a month out. Hey, we'll be here doing a live show then.
Absolutely.
As with anything, guys, if you're watching right now, we are live. Not on Instagram yet, but
we'll be in just a second.
Welcome to the Upstate Streamcast, presented by the Upstate Coalition. I am joined here. My name's Jacob. Obviously, if you're listening on Apple or any podcast, I am Jacob from the Nutrition Store. I'm here with Chad Delaney from TriFit Barbell. What's up, dude?
Much, man. Sweating today.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I walked in and I was literally dripping, and I'm glad that you have the same condition as me.
Absolutely.
With my armpits being
constant
just nothing
sweating.
but
that's why I pulled off the sleeves, man.
Dude, but you know what? Even with those, I raise my arm and I still see a ring up.
Dude.
And I'm like, God, dude, I can't get away.
Too, it'll be a different shade of color. It'll be that shade of green within an hour.
Yeah. People always ask why I only wear black or white. And it's it's
easy to cover up. Yeah. I wore a gray shirt in here the other day because I got it at the meet that I was at in California. Right. And I sweated through it within the first hour. Okay. It was obnoxious. Yeah. Everybody's like, I really like that shirt, but it's really gross. And and then I had to peel it off. And it's just awful.
So what was the weather out there? It was hot, you said. Yeah. Or was it the same humidity here? Or is it just a dry, nasty?
No, absolutely. This was the desert, so it was 100% just dry heat. But it felt like you were walking into a sauna. As soon as we got off the plane, it was just heat right in your face.
Oh God,
it was weird, man. But one thing I did find, which I thought was super cool, is I went to a gym and I was squatting, and it was heavy squats, and I'm drenched in sweat, but I caught my breath immediately. Yeah. It was weird. When the set was done, usually I'm for a couple minutes, but I literally racked out. I was I felt good. I don't know if humidity plays any role. I have no science or evidence to back that up. That it makes it harder to catch your breath, but I absolutely felt like I could catch my breath easier with the dry heat. Even though it was 120.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of makes sense though. I mean, extra moisture and density in your lungs. I mean, your body has to expel that somehow, so it makes it harder, right?
Yeah, you would think so. But that was cool. That was cool. But past that, it was stupid hot.
So, Chad, you've got some notes here for me today, man, and that does not only intimidate me, but it makes me intrigued.
No. So I like to write down. Anybody that knows me knows that I like to kind of plan ahead a little bit. So yesterday, if anybody following my Instagram page, I just posted a couple of random surveys, just yes, no, on steroid use, right? So it is a very taboo topic. It is something that not everybody is comfortable talking about, but I think for you and I, that's what the threshold we want to push is that, hey, let's talk about the things that are uncomfortable for people to bring up, right? So one of the questions I asked, which I think was really, really interesting, because I literally got almost a 50-50 split on how people felt, is do we think that people that have used steroids either in the off season or in the past, I did not specify, right? So that's definitely going to be a big part of our discussion is, do you feel like that is cheating for people to use steroids prior to a tested competition and basically go into competition without being on any sort of gear? Right. So is that cheating and
to go into tested competition?
Yeah. So literally using steroids, let's say in the past, let's say you've had a history of using steroids, and then at some point you stop using them, and so you go natural, and then you compete on a tested stage with other natural athletes. Right. So that was kind of my question: is do we feel like that's cheating?
So I have my opinion on that, and I think I can approach it from two different ways.
Please, let's dive into it.
The moral side of me says, oh yeah, they came off, they're good, they're clean, they want to do things the right way. Yeah. The science side of me says, well, okay, based on the most recent literature, actually Brad Schoenfeld posted a study on this.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
About hyperplasia occurring in heavy steroid use. Yeah. So hyperplasia, if you don't know what that is, that's the basically new creation of muscle cells. Yeah. And we only see that during fetal development and then also puberty. Yep. And so every time we build muscle, it's hypertrophy. It's just the growth of that cell.
But you're born with the same number of muscle fibers you essentially have for life. You don't grow new muscle fibers. You just make the ones that you have stronger.
Exactly. Right?
So this is actually
knowing that data that hyperplasia occurs with anabolic steroid use, even 10 years down the road being clean, there's a possibility that you have new muscle cells developed and might give you an advantage.
That's really interesting.
Now, is that to say it's definite? No, because the study didn't say what drugs. It just said anabolic cycles. We don't know what.
Sure.
Whether it's testosterone or trenbolone acetate.
Okay.
But so for me, like that's a weird way to approach it. I don't know.
Sure.
What do you think?
That's exactly kind of my opinion on that, or well, at least some of that, in the sense that like I'm torn because there is like the moral side of me. It's just like one, I competed on tested competitions my entire life, right, up until recently, and I found that like if you're on that stage and you do somehow know that someone has an advantage in the past, right, it does add something to this. Okay, I worked so hard. Why are you able to compete alongside me, even though you had things that have helped you in the past, right?
Right.
Now, I think there definitely needs to be some more research on the matter of like long-term, like how, when people come off, do they maintain a long-term effect? Right. And so right there's some evidence, right? You did say heavy steroid use, right?
Yeah, and I need to reread the actual
I wonder
article.
what's heavy,
Yeah, I don't know if they did this on bodybuilders. They literally did a muscle biopsy, and so that's like a 12 gauge needle. You stick it through your quad, pull out the actual muscle tissue.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
And they stuck it under a microscope, and there was a higher density of muscle cells compared to previous. So I need to go reread that. Just
sure, no,
so
and I definitely want to read it too, because I feel like there isn't a ton of research to talk about it, but speculating just from my own experience working with athletes my whole life, being an athlete, I definitely find that there is quite a few people that now compete in tested competitions that have had a history of drug use in the past. Oh, back in college, I ran some cycles, or when I was younger, I did it a couple of times. I ran a couple cycles when I was competing, but it's been 10 years, it's been 20 years, it's been so on. So it's hard to say, hey, should you stay out of this wheelhouse of tested athletes if this was so long ago? I mean, you've doubled your life in that time frame. That's so hard. That is so hard. But I definitely think that like the people that are cycling in the off season and then of course competing on stage, that is definitely something that I cannot get behind. It's like, hey, just because you're going into the competition and you're off the sauce currently doesn't mean you should be competing along with other athletes.
I agree.
We know that once you come off the hormones, right, things start to come down, but eventually they're going to level out, right? And depending on how long out from that competition you are, you can time these really well.
And same thing with clearance rate too. I mean, a lot of these athletes are using orals and clearing them in 24 to 48 hours and going into these tested shows. And that's where I have an issue with it, because it's just a moral, like, no. I can, that the issue we talked about previous, like of years past, like I think we could work around that to make it work. But the moral threshold of saying like, oh, okay, I'm natural now because I'm off for a week.
Absolutely. Which is super hard. So like I was talking with a good friend of mine, Austin, if he's watching yesterday, he definitely brought up some good points about steroid use or just being tested. So USAPL tests about 10% of their athletes in competition, right? Wow. So during a competition, about 10% of their athletes are going to be tested. Obviously, these are the top tier in that competition, maybe the number one male, number one female, and then a fistful of like tiers down. And then I know for the USPA, it's typically best male lifter, best female lifter, and then 2 randomly selected at most of these competitions. It varies, right? So that leaves,
really high selection.
That leaves 56 some odd athletes or so that aren't going in and testing, right? Now, Austin made a good point of, if they are not winning, is it really something we need to worry about? And that's a good question, okay? Because I think that's really something I did not think about at the time is, okay, so they're not winning the competition. Does that really make a difference then? I still think that somehow isn't something that I can get behind as far as just supporting. And again, it's a moral thing. It's a hey man, like, even though yes, you didn't win the competition, maybe you got second, maybe you got third, maybe you took a medal that would have went to someone else, but you decided, hey, I'm going to use it and I'm going to come off it. I'm going to use it, I'm going to come off of it.
Right. That's gotta suck too. I mean, I would say like I'm not in support of it, but if you're not winning, I'm like, dude, that's a double loss for you. Because you're on the sauce and you suck. Like that, that's right. Like that, so
but I mean, and the research that I've done is it's not the holy grail of training, right? No. If you're not balancing the other things, if you're not training while using the stuff, yes, you're still going to increase muscle mass. Right. There is no denying that it is going to help you because it is going to boost muscle. It's going to boost your metabolism. It's going to help so many different things. But there are lots of below average athletes that are taking it that are still not that strong.
Yeah, because they're training and they're. Here's the thing: like, it doesn't throw periodization out the door. It doesn't throw proper nutrition out the door.
Right. Sleep habits.
Right. I mean, there's so many factors that go into it. Sure. That, and I see it with young kids, especially that want to get big. They're playing Xbox till 2 a.m. Yeah. They're eating, McDonald's and cheeseburgers every night.
Sure.
but I'm going to run trend and test.
Right.
And then they come back to me 3 months later with a swollen face and just side effects.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. You got to be aware. So it's like, I don't want to sit here and tell people do it, don't do it. Like that's totally on you, right? You choose whatever is best for you. But I would strongly encourage you to speak to people that have done it and get lots of different feedback, because there's lots of people that are going to tell you certain things. Not all of it is going to be based on facts. Some of it is just going to be personal experience. I think experience does go a long way, right? Because there isn't a ton of research behind this stuff, but you need to go out and you need to learn as much as you can about yourself. I would definitely encourage you to talk to your doctor, get your hormones checked on a regular. Don't just jump into this thinking, okay, here's something I can use that all of a sudden I can be fucking huge or strong. It's like, maybe, but you may also screw up your body for life, so you have to be willing to make that decision. I think it's a very mature decision that takes it should take a lot of time to make a yes or no selection. Because to me, it's like, once you've done it, you're forever going to be in that category of not just natty. That's just me, right? No, and I honestly don't care. Take it, man. Run testosterone. That's awesome. Like we know that hormones drive so much from mood and function, cognitive ability, metabolic rate, muscle mass retention. I mean, there's so many things. Without proper hormone levels, especially as men, it can really weigh on us in so many negative ways. Depression can come up. I mean, we see it. That's why HRT is becoming much more common. So that people want to feel better.
And I'm in the camp that thinks that, things within our environment. And we got a question.
I'm just reading comments.
Well, no, I was also going to say, yes, it is a very mature. It should be a very mature decision that's made. I think, unfortunately, for most dudes that are in the bodybuilding powerlifting world, it wasn't a mature decision. And then we have to learn from our mistakes. And I'm one of those guys. I jumped in, I did it, I messed with it. I think I blew up to 250 pounds at one time.
Dude,
And
hey man, that's very honest. That's good.
And that's important. It wasn't. I literally felt like death, man. I could not wipe my own ass.
Wow.
So there's a substance, and I always tell people I use my use as a platform to tell kids not to do it.
Sure. Okay.
Because I mess myself up, and most of these kids just see the results. They don't see the side effects.
But
a substance called Anadrol.
Okay.
Right? It's a really strong anabolic.
Okay.
It put 25 pounds in my body.
Wow.
In 2 weeks.
Holy shit.
Now, how much edema, how much swelling was I dealing with?
Yeah,
probably
a lot of water. Absolutely.
But man, when I tell you I was breathing heavy getting out of bed, at one point I was like, there's something wrong with me.
Okay, interesting.
So there's always that, push and pull, give and take. Make
Totally.
sure you do your homework, guys. This is not an instant solution.
Absolutely.
Here I am. I weighed this morning, and I'm just on TRT at this point. And I do get blood work. I have all that checked.
Yeah, absolutely.
This morning, 228. I think before I ever did a cycle of anything, I was 215 lean.
Nice.
So, it's not like it was that drastic. It wasn't taking me from 170 pound, skinny rail to 230. So just, keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And I appreciate the honesty, because I think that's big there. I think, unfortunately, this is, it is so much taboo. And honestly, there's a lot more athletes out there that are on it that just don't broadcast it. And that's okay. I'm not going to call out a single person. I'm not going to throw out names. I don't care. You know what I mean? I just think stay in your division, right? I've been running testosterone for the past year now, right? And up until I was 31, I had never touched this stuff. I just didn't do it, right? But I had monitored my hormones for a good year before that. Saw a solid trend of testosterone levels just slowly coming down. My body weight was growing up, and not in a good way, right? My energy was dropping. There were so many things that weren't going the way that I wanted, right? And I found that no matter how hard I was training and following, I sleep perfectly. People make fun of me all the time. It's just like, you going to bed? And it's like, yeah, I'm going to bed. I gotta recover. And I eat what I'm supposed to, and I just still wasn't doing what I wanted to. So I made that choice, right? But I waited as long as I could. And I think for anybody else, wait as long as you can, because once you do, you're going to love it, right? There are positives, right? But I've only touched, mind you, just testosterone, right? Haven't dived down any other avenue. I don't know. I can't speak on it because I haven't been there, right? So that's
it's a gray area. We talked about it before we got started. Half these drugs are made for cows.
Sure.
Trend, most popular one. That's the most memed one on the internet.
Sure.
It was literally developed for cattle to gain weight before being slaughtered so that they could produce more meat.
That's crazy.
And so we're putting that into our body. Really good idea. So.
No, that's insane. Sorry, guys, I'm just reading the comment. I know we're sideways. That probably doesn't help anybody to watch. Austin's just saying that he doesn't think it's okay. It just bothers him. Hold on. It's not saying it's okay. It's just, it bothers me less. In the context, you're not going to ever catch anybody. Okay, that's true.
Yeah.
I think I know what you mean there.
Yeah.
And that's it. It is hard. There are definitely good standards to testing and making sure that we're trying to create an equal playing field. And I get that the science behind like hormone levels and tracking it all is very difficult to say, because I think there was 2 female athletes most recently banned from the Olympic Games because their testosterone were too high.
Yep.
Right. Which I find really fascinating, of course. And I don't want to dive down this, but then we also have a now transsexual female competing in weightlifting. So there's just a lot of things happening, and it comes down to essentially hormones, right? So that's
and then obviously the rules with the Olympic committee, and we don't have to go down that.
No, but it's very interesting time that we live in.
And it also makes me wonder too, knowing extreme amounts of exercise, especially for the female body.
Yeah.
And even caloric deficits, if they weren't recovering and eating properly, they could bottom out their E2, their estrogen, and then their testosterone would upregulate naturally.
Interesting.
So they might have not been on anything.
Right.
They might have just had they were deficient in everything they needed. So that's also they got banned.
Higher testosterone producing. I don't know if this was your previous test levels were this and now they're this.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's how they got flagged. Maybe that's it. I would have to read up on it more.
Right.
But if these females just naturally produce more testosterone, I don't feel like that's warrants, hey, you can't compete.
Yeah.
But maybe that's got to be it. Because I find it weird that they would say, hey, ladies, your testosterone's too high for you to compete. When it's just like, I've met some girls that are just like, they drive a lot of testosterone. That is how they've always been. It's their genetic makeup, and good for them. They can produce more muscle. They can get stronger. That's awesome.
And another thing, like no matter how much testosterone suppression or estrogen therapy you can give to just put it out there to a transgender person, as a man biologically, I do not believe that their testosterone levels would be low enough, even on all that therapy, to be classified within the same normal range as a female hormone level. So I don't know, and that's a question I have. Are they testing that individual's blood to the same standard as they would another female competitor? Like are their hormone panels expected to be within a certain range across the board?
Interesting. I don't know.
That's
a really good question as well.
Because I don't know that answer. But
I mean, I guess the adaptations that are made as men through, especially going through puberty, significantly affect like how we look and why men can perform at a certain level compared to the traditional woman that was born a woman, and so on and so forth. So I guess that kind of goes back to our initial topic of, can you use steroids and then go off steroids and still be considered a natural athlete? Right. Time frame plays a big role here. I can't say that, hey, if it's been 10 years, you're golden. You know what I mean? Where's that definitive timeline? I don't know. Or how much steroid use did you have? Right. But I definitely feel the adaptations from experience and then observation of other athletes. I've seen it before. I remember one guy that I used to train with at the gym that I used to work for. This was 5+ years ago. Over the summer, I mean, he went from a 170 range right up to 190. And I mean, he was a mean, lean, muscular 190. And he was just very open. He was just like, I started running this, and this, and it caused insane results. And so, I mean, hey, man, it worked. But I would say even if he came off of it now, what he has been able to develop on this stuff is going to stick with him for life. Now, his hormones are going to come down as he takes off, but eventually they're going to level out. Right. Or should. But his muscle adaptations, his ligaments, his tendons, all of this have been used to a certain weight amount. I feel like you're still going to sustain quite a bit. Right? And I mean, if the hyperplasia occurred, then those cells are not going anywhere. Right. They can shrink, they can atrophy, and they can hypertrophy. Sure. So it often depends. If you continue training, I mean, you're going to maintain quite a bit. No, exactly. Yeah. And I was going to say, most people, the problem when they come off, and this is not to be prescribed, this is not me recommending use, but most people who come off, they let that downswing of hormones control their actions. And so they stop training. They stop eating right. And then they blame the fact that they came off of steroids or their cycles on, the fact they're off. Right. They stop training. Right. They let their weakness and their tiredness get to them. Absolutely. Yeah. So, No, it's super interesting. I think there's obviously a lot of performance enhancers out there, and there's a lot of them that are banned. I mean, take Adderall, for instance, right? I abused the shit out of Adderall in college. Me too. I always tell people, I had a problem. I had a problem. I loved Adderall like candy. But for real, but I also was a collegiate volleyball player, right? Okay. So that I can't tell you how helpful popping an Adderall before a volleyball tournament was for me.
Yeah.
I went into so focused, so driven. I could hit harder. I moved faster. I made calls or decisions on the court that my brain could not keep up with normally, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a big performance enhancer. Obviously, we weren't tested or anything like that.
And that actually goes into a lecture that I gave a while back, and it was on a podcast for jiu-jitsu.
Oh, okay.
It was the difference between PEDs and ergogenic aids. You know, what do we classify as a performance-enhancing drug versus an ergogenic aid? Yeah. Ergogenic aid is basically just a supplement that can enhance performance.
Sure.
I like to basically diffuse between the two because so many people say, oh, it's a supplement. You can get it from food.
Right.
Well, you're not going to eat 10 pounds of steak a day to get enough creatine.
Right.
So I consider that an ergogenic aid.
Absolutely. Okay.
But it comes down to like, okay, is Adderall a PED? Or what would we,
in my mind, it would be.
Yeah.
Like only because it's a controlled substance. Can't get it without a doctor. Can't go to any, just store and just buy it, right? So I would think controlled substance. So it's most sports, at least from what I know, it's banned, right? Or it's not allowed. But same thing for like a certain amount of caffeine in your system. You can only have so much caffeine in your system, right? But a certain amount is allowed, and that's okay. So
that's a good point.
Are a certain amount of steroids allowed? I don't know.
It's such a gray area. And there's so much controversy. If you ever meet somebody in regards to this that's so strongly opinionated towards one way, I'm sure they're wrong, because like that should tell you right away. It's a very gray area.
It is.
If you're not able to sit in the middle and have a conversation about it, then something's up.
Yeah, so and it's coming from bodybuilding background and stuff like that, and then powerlifting. Obviously our sports, it is a big thing. It is running the sport. Arnold Schwarzenegger and all these other and big powerlifters like Eddie Cohen. It's just like they didn't say that they did it, but they didn't say that they didn't do it. You know what I mean? Or maybe Arnold claimed to be natty. I don't remember.
No, Arnold was the guy who woke up and took handfuls of D-ball.
Okay, well, but he never claimed natty, right?
I don't think he made the claim now.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. Okay.
It wasn't Mike O'Hearn.
Okay.
Mike O'Trend.
Mr. Natty. Yeah. I look like that when
he's 55 or something.
There's no
he's
way.
Still incline benching 405.
Yeah. That's insane.
If I ever incline bench 405, I'm definitely on the sauce.
Right now. Well, and then this is completely outrageous. Like I said, I was chatting with a friend yesterday about it, and so I do think that to a degree it is going to be almost impossible to keep people from manipulating the system in their favor in any sport, right? There's always going to be people that are going to bend the rules, right? Within the rules, or just go without being caught, right? So I mean, how many times has a professional athlete won many titles and then later on got caught, and those titles are taken away, right? If they would have stopped a little early, maybe would have never gotten caught. Right. We don't know. So that's where it's just like it's so hard for me, because I feel like there's so much gray area to say yes, we should make sure that everybody's tested, or that nobody gets tested, or like. I even think sometimes it's like, well, maybe we should just open it up and just let everybody do what they fucking want. Yeah, which would be, yes, of course it would be insane, but it's also one of those. It's just like, well, then we don't need to worry about if someone's actually cheating the system, because you're all allowed to cheat the system anyway.
And how much cheating of the system? Like, what compounds are you running that they're not running? Exactly.
And so it's that would be ridiculous. Sport would be something very different, in that athletes were allowed to take whatever they wanted, right? But we look at like. And there's a little off topic, like the war on drugs. It's like war has done nothing and only gotten worse.
It's improved the drug economy.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like saying that, okay, these substances are banned. You just find that there are doctors out there and people that can change formulas and chemical makeups to still not get caught. Take Russia. Russia is not allowed to be in the Olympics, even though they still have 300 some odd athletes competing. They're banned from the Olympics because of doping. So it's really, really interesting. You have an entire country that's just like, not you guys. 300 of their athletes can come. They can hold on to, or they can wear their colors. They're supposed to be wearing neutral colors. I imagine they're still going to wear their flags. They're not allowed to carry their flag. It's really interesting that they're still allowed to compete, but they're also being banned.
Right.
Like that's wild to me. So you have an entire country that's like, hey, we're going to continue to try to manipulate and bend the rules to in our favor as much as we can.
I mean, they're kind of the godfathers of drugs anyway. I mean, over there, that's the...
Is that Rocky 2?
Yeah, I mean, original, the Bulgarian weightlifters, that's why they started, taking things like D-ball and stuff.
Sure.
So...
Yeah. And then Isaiah chiming in, what's up, buddy? Is their camera turned because there's too much girth in the live? Absolutely.
That's exactly
I could turn it. I feel like we're going to be out of the frame. That might work. Oh, right, there we go.
Yeah.
That works.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, any like final thoughts, man? I got one or two. It's one, I definitely would think that more research is always going to be helpful, right?
Right.
Do I think that there needs to be separation of natural people and non-natural people? Totally,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But I think unfortunately, if you're going to compete on a natural stage, there's still going to be those outliers. And at the end of the day, if you just focus on yourself, but I mean, it's so hard. I would love to learn more about long-term results after people have come off, while people are still taking it.
Yep.
You know, if they run it for 20, 30 years, what kind of changes, like you said, are they literally growing new muscle fibers? Because that's literally fascinating. And I think there needs to be more research on that.
Yeah,
like
I agree. And you know that
mind-blowing.
I totally agree with everything you said. And I think that to, I guess, piggyback off of that, are we ever going to be able to get to that point because of the legality of these drugs?
Sure.
Because the legality of these drugs typically determines the setting in which we research them.
Right.
So as it stands now, most of these anabolic steroids are usually prescribed for either cancer patients to maintain their weight during chemotherapy.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really give us an actual, observation of the athletic population.
Yeah.
So we're extrapolating information from cancer patients who are sick,
right,
and applying them to people in the gym.
Yeah.
And so it makes me question, okay, well then what if it actually does this? What if it's 10 times with the training stimuli applied?
Right.
So a lot of gray area, a lot of, it brings up more questions.
Sure. Actually, more questions than answers for sure. And I also think education on the stuff, because I don't think that steroids are as bad as everybody makes them sound. And for the most part, right, there are going to be like outliers, like we talked about, like Trend. Trend's a very intense chemical that's going to cause some serious changes. I'm not here to say, hey, go do any sort of drug whatsoever. Yeah. But I'm also not telling you, don't do the research and learn more about it, because it's not, drugs are bad. Yeah. Drugs are not bad, right? And we can see, like with pot, like weed is now becoming legal almost everywhere in the US, right? And it will continue to grow that way. But for the longest time, people will look at you if you smoke weed like you were an absolute criminal that was going to like murder and rape and do whatever, So
it's called reefer madness. That's
absolutely,
yeah.
So a lot of people associate, hey, roid rage, small testicles, all this other stuff with steroids.
That's true.
It's like, well, it's like you really got to learn more about it and how they change your body, what things are actually happening, and I think that would also be better is that if more people were able to learn more about it, things would go much better. Yeah. Just saying things are bad, it's like the war on drugs. Just saying don't do drugs, just know everything's bad. If you learn more about why these things are bad and what they actually do about it, then maybe people would make a smarter choice, make those smart choices.
I'll conclude with the exact same thing I always talk about nutrition wise is having an extreme mindset and belief system in any direction is the wrong direction. Yeah. Once you find that moderate middle ground of being educated and also understanding what you're doing, that's when you win.
Absolutely. That's a great point.
So, you never live in extremes. Yeah. That's why I hate the 4-letter diets. I hate keto. I hate, all, even IIFYM, like that's kind of a fad. Yeah. So you just kind of have to come to your own conclusions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's super smart. We did get one question from Isaiah. So he was, what are our thoughts about marijuana being banned? This is according to WADA, WADA.
Yeah, World Anti-Doping Association. Yeah. My thoughts are that, is it a PED? I wouldn't say directly, but can it enhance recovery? That's the question that I ask. Sure. Like, are you able to reduce cortisol levels to upregulate the function of other hormones in the body? And if so, is that more than a glass of bourbon would do for you at night? And so I don't think it should be banned. I think we should just get over it. And it's going to happen at one point. I think 20 years down the road. Sure. It'll just go, okay, yeah,
Absolutely.
Because you go to Colorado right now, man, and you go to a dispensary. It's better than a liquor store. They're so professional. They actually find you I was blown away. I went back and
paranoid, this will.
Right, but they know everything about the chemicals and the terpenes and the breakdown of each cannabinoid.
Interesting.
That's a side conversation. But I was blown away.
Okay.
I went back. I went to Colorado in January, and I just walked in there and was like, wow, these guys are pros. Yeah, they're not just they're not lazy stoners. Sure.
Yeah. Well, that's the positive right there. We took drugs off the street that's just being sold by some teenager in a back alley somewhere, and literally put in the hands of professionals, people that are trying to run a legitimate business. Much like the liquor industry. You go to a good cocktail bar, it's just like you can get a fantastic drink, and they're going to tell you all about it and how it works and all this stuff, all these flavor profiles and stuff like that. I went to a place in Texas, and it was so good. Yeah. but I'm in the same position. I don't think it's a performance enhancer off the top of my head. It's just, but like you said, it's like you go down that road of like, is it helping people recover because they're going to sleep better? Maybe it'll increase appetite a little bit, and sometimes that can be good. I guess it all depends.
Very much.
Yeah.
Because I personally know people who are able to work out under the influence of marijuana.
Oh, really?
I'm not that guy.
I've never
tried. I would not do it.
Yeah.
But some people say that it helps them lock in and pay more attention. It's subjective, but
these bodybuilders.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm only asking because
helps the mind-muscle connection, dude.
I could see that you get that good body buzz. You're very aware of yourself, right, when you're on it. But when it comes to like, I can't picture any power lifter ever benefiting from doing it and then going and performing lifting. Nothing sounds worse than trying to get a good breath and brace than having toked up before, and trying to deadlift like that. That sounds like a terrible combination to me personally. Maybe there's someone out there who's like, hey, I do it every time. I used to know a guy, he was one of the best volleyball players I ever played against, and he was stoned 24/7.
I know people that can function like that, man.
Dude, he was amazing. Like he just like, he had sight beyond sight. Like he just knew where the ball was going before we hit the ball. Like it was wild. But in my mind, I'm like, man, anytime I've ever done weed in the past, it's like
it makes me tired.
Exactly. I'm like delayed reaction. Like what?
Yeah.
Someone asked a question 45 minutes ago. So I don't know. Yeah, that's that one's a tough one. That's a good question, Isaiah. So we appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, good conversation, man.
Yeah.
And I guess in summary, guys, we're not condoning the use of anything illegal, any kind of substance. We're not saying do this. I think just having a conversation about it to, even pose more questions for yourself to do some study on.
Absolutely.
I think that's what we're here to do, and we appreciate you guys listening.
Yeah.
Seriously, it means a lot.
Thanks for tuning in.
Stay tuned every Monday here live on the page. It will probably increase to other pages as we grow.
Yep.
We plan on bringing in Logan and even Ryan.
Yeah. We got quite a few people. Obviously, Logan's out of town this week, but we've got a physical therapist that'll be joining us very soon, and then along with another long list of people that I would definitely like to get on the show. They're going to bring a lot of cool and very professional experience information to the page.
Yeah, and I'd love to. I'll go ahead and put this out here right now. We're super thankful to be the title sponsor of the Upstate Classic coming up next month. I'd love to get you guys down there.
Absolutely.
And do a cast at the event.
Okay.
That'd be fun. Just to get the bodybuilding side of it, maybe have that different perspective. So
absolutely.
Anyway, guys,
great idea.
Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next time.
Later.